You've seen it, haven't you? The look that isn't soft. The smile that arrives only when you stop trying to deserve it. It doesn't come when you offer flowers. It comes when you walk away. And still she watches. You remember the silence between her lips and yours, the moment she tilted her head just slightly, not to be kissed, but to see if you'd take it. That wasn't affection. That was worship of the knife you didn't even know you carried. There is something ancient behind her eyes, older than empathy, older than virtue. You feel it when she lingers near men who do not beg. You feel it in the way her breath quickens, not when held, but when cornered. You never understood why she came closer when you withdrew, why she shattered the peace you offered, why she forgot the man who adored her and remembered the one who didn't ask. No one ever told you that her love has teeth, or that her longing was not for comfort, but for confrontation, not to be saved, but to be burned. So why does she smile when you are cruel? Why does she stay when you do not reach for her? And why do you remember it still, that moment, when you didn't touch her, and she never looked more yours? She never loved the altar. She only watched you build it. Every offering you placed, your kindness, your softness, your trembling virtue only made her quieter, duller, more polite. You thought she was pleased, but no, she was vanishing. With every gentle word, she became more ghost than woman. You didn't see it. You thought your patience was power, but power does not wait to be noticed. You thought love was approval. You were told that safety would be seductive, that showing her your wounds would win her loyalty. But the moment you exposed your ache, she disappeared. She smiled, yes, but not the smile you remember. This one was thin, formal, almost maternal. The real smile came later, when you said no. You never forgot it. That flash of something feral, not romantic, not innocent, not moral when you denied her, when you didn't apologize, when you finally withdrew your gaze and gave her silence instead of warmth. That was the moment she blinked, slow and dangerous, as if seeing you for the first time. She wasn't horrified, she was amused. No one prepared you for that. No one told you the truth that your virtue was never her desire. You believed the stories, that if you were good enough, soft enough, consistent enough, she would choose you. But her desire was never a door opened by politeness. It was a cliff, and you were supposed to push her. Not cruelly, not violently, but with indifference. The kind that comes from knowing you don't need her love to define your worth. The kind of cold that doesn't flinch when she cries. She wanted to know what you worshipped, and when she saw that it was her, she lost respect. That is the unspeakable truth. She desires to be seen but not adored. She wants to be known but not possessed. She aches to be dominated but only by someone who will not kneel. The man she remembers is never the one who waited. It is the one who walked away without a backward glance. And so she tests. Not because she's cruel, but because she's starving for something worthy of surrender. She smiles when you resist her beauty. She grows wet when you speak with silence. She falls in love when you love something more than her. Not your job, not your ambition, but the fire in your spine that says you cannot move me. You see, she is not as tame as you were told. She is not built for temples or treaties. She is wild, ancient, coiled in the ribcage of every man's shadow. She wants to be pierced, not with romance, with clarity. She wants the man who sees through her tricks and doesn't flinch, who watches her chaos unfold and doesn't try to fix it, who dares to say, "You are beautiful, but I will not obey." And so the paradox, she runs from control, yet begs to be claimed. She flees comfort, but returns to danger. She mocks weakness, then punishes strength. And you poor soul believed her words. You believed her when she said she wanted kindness. You thought softness would unlock her body. But the lock was never moral. It was primal. She doesn't want kindness. She wants penetration, psychological, spiritual, brutal penetration into the parts of her that no therapist can reach. She longs to be undone, not with affection, but with truth, the unrelenting kind, the kind you were too afraid to give, because you were taught to be safe, and safe men do not disturb, they do not command, they do not awaken anything but boredom. But she is waiting to be awakened, not with poetry, with presence, with the kind of gaze that does not ask for permission, with the kind of hand that rests lightly on her throat not to harm, but to remind her that she can still surrender. You thought dominance was vulgar, but you misunderstood it. Dominance is not about noise, it is not about volume, it is not even about sex. It is about indifference to validation, about knowing who you are, with or without her. That is what seduces, not desperation, not performance, but the quiet cruelty of a man who will not haste. You think she's angry when she raises her voice, but she's not. She's desperate, desperate for resistance, desperate for a force that doesn't yield. She picks fights not to destroy you, but to see if you will fold, if you'll back down, if you'll retreat into apology. And when you do, her desire withers, not because you were wrong, but because you gave up the throne. Yes, the throne. Every man sits upon it, whether he knows it or not. But only the few remain seated when the test begins. When she cries, when she accuses, when she seduces you into submission with her own fragility. Most men collapse. They think love means stepping down, but she does not love the man who kneels. She only loves the one who stays seated, not arrogantly, not with cruelty, but with stillness. The man who holds the center. That is the smile behind the knife. She brings the blade, not to kill you, but to see if you bleed, if you flinch, if you cry, and if you do, she leaves, not out of hatred, but out of disappointment. You were supposed to be the one who wouldn't fall, and so she returns again and again to men who do not pursue, who offer nothing but silence, because deep down, she knows those are the men who cannot be moved, and those are the men she can finally serve. You think submission is a humiliation? You are wrong. True submission, the kind she hides even from herself, is a reward, and she offers it only to the man she cannot control. Not the man who begs, not the man who pleads, but the one who sees through the game, who smiles at the storm and says, "Blow harder." She is waiting, not for a savior, but for a mirror that does not distort, that does not flatter, that does not change depending on her mood, a mirror that reflects her as she is wild, hungry, afraid, and does not turn away. Can you be that mirror, or will you, like all the others, shatter the moment she tests you, fold the moment she says no, bleed the moment she bares her teeth? She doesn't need love, she needs truth, and truth, my friend, is rarely gentle. It is the blade she carries to your door, and the only men she remembers are the ones who never stepped back. She waits in every room you enter, though you don't see her at first. She's hidden behind smiles, compliments, gestures that feel sweet but never hungry. And yet behind her softness coils the deeper ritual she is waiting to kneel. Not for romance, not for safety, for something rawer, more ancient. She wants a man who has burned through his need to be liked, who has tasted the poison of approval and spit it back out. A man who no longer apologizes for the space he takes, the eyes he carries, the silence he keeps. You think this is domination, but you are wrong. It is not domination, it is gravity. The man who will not kneel becomes the one she revolves around, She kneels not because he commands her, but because he does not. His refusal to submit to her demands is what breaks her open, his spine upright. Unmoved is the altar she finally surrenders upon. She doesn't want to rule you. That's just the game. She wants to try to rule you and lose. She wants to seduce you, manipulate you, push every boundary you claim to have, and then realize you are unshaken. And in that moment, when she throws her worst at you and finds only silence in return, something ancient inside her exhales, something she didn't know she was choking on the weight of control, the responsibility of direction, the mask of power. She wants to give it up, but only to someone who does not beg for it. Do you understand that most men kneel before the test even begins? They think submission is love, that if they bend, she will feel seen, but she is not looking to be seen. She is looking to see if you can carry the burden of her chaos and not collapse. She throws the fire not to be saved, but to be proven wrong, to see if finally anyone will not burn. And so she pretends she wants tenderness. She pretends she wants you to listen, to care, to hold space. But the moment you become the sponge for her moods, she grows dry. Her blood turns cold. Not because she wanted pain, but because you didn't offer something stronger than her storm. She needs a man who doesn't absorb her. She needs a man who stands. The throne is not about arrogance. It is about presence. The still, brutal presence of a man who no longer trades his soul for kisses. The man who does not explain himself, who does not narrate his wounds like a child begging for comfort. He is the man who sees her wildness and does not look away, who sees her rage and does not try to fix it, who holds her down not with force, but with the weight of who he is. You thought power was loud, but she is not drawn to loudness. She is drawn to silence, not passive silence, but terrifying silence. The kind of silence that says, "You will not move me." That is what she bows to. That is what makes her legs tremble. Not charm, not cleverness, but the inescapable void of a man who does not need her to feel whole. She doesn't want your softness. She wants your center, the center you buried to be accepted, the center you betrayed to be loved. And she will not kneel until you recover it, until you become something darker, colder, more sovereign than the version of yourself you were told to be, the nice man, the good man, the gentle man. She can smell that man from a mile away, and she pities him, not because he is weak, but because he is dishonest. He lies, not in words and posture. He lies in the way he holds her hand too carefully, in the way he hesitates when she tests him, in the way he backs down the moment her voice changes tone. She sees it all. She sees the boy inside who never became flame, and she loses faith. Because if he cannot hold her storm, how will he hold the kingdom? She wants to kneel, yes, but only before a king. And kings do not negotiate their crown. You think this is cruel, that a man should not have to play these games, but this is not a game. This is biology in mythic clothing. She is a creature of instinct, and instinct does not care about fairness. Instinct does not read psychology books. Instinct remembers the man who walked into the cave with blood on his hands and silence in his eyes. The man who did not ask to lead, he simply did, and so they followed. Do you know why she stays with men who do not love her? Because those men do not kneel. Because those men do not explain. Because those men, broken as they are, possess one thing most good. Men lost the refusal to submit to her moods. The refusal to be moved. It is not that she wants pain. It is that pain reveals the real. And most men are afraid of the real. Most men retreat into performance. She wants something that cannot be faked, and so she tests for it. She whispers one thing and watches to see if you believe it. She flinches and watches to see if you soften. She cries and watches to see if you fall. And the moment you do, she writes your name in the long list of men who were not worthy, not because you cared, but because you abandoned your throne. The throne is your center. It is the space you hold within yourself that does not beg, does not explain, does not tremble. It is the eye of the storm, and she is the storm. Do you understand now? She wants to see if her winds can break you. She wants to see if her beauty will seduce you. And when it doesn't, when you remain, breath steady, gaze fixed, she crumbles. That is her secret. She wants to be ruled, but only by the man who does not try. Because the moment you try, you lose. You become like all the others, reactive, desperate, unrooted. But the man who does not try, he is ungovernable. He is terrifying. He is the one she dreams of, not because he offers her love, but because he offers her truth. And truth, my friend, is the only thing she cannot fake. She kneels to the man who sees through her, the man who names her games and laughs, the man who touches her not out of need, but out of choice, the man who can say no, who can walk away, who will walk away if she forgets who he is. And so she remembers. She remembers the weight of his hand, not because it hurt her, but because it didn't shake. She remembers the sound of his silence, not empty, but full of danger, full of mystery, full of the refusal to be tamed. You do not find this throne, you become it. And only then, when you stop seeking her approval, when you stop fearing her rejection, only then does she crawl to your feet. Not as a servant, as a woman reborn in the presence of the man she cannot shake. She comes to you clothed in need, but it is not need you can touch. It is not hunger for your gifts, nor thirst for your tenderness. It is something far older, something not even she dares name. A woman does not approach a man for comfort. She approaches him to confront the limit of her illusions. And if she finds no edge, if your gaze does not slice, if your presence does not cut, she will turn away. Even as she smiles, she will walk, even as she kisses. For you are not the mirror. You are only the echo. Do you know what happens when you finally become still? When your soul no longer reaches for her approval, and your hands no longer ask to be held? She panics, because the moment you vanish inward, she can no longer control you. And now the truth rises, she does not love control. She only clutches it when the man in front of her is too weak to carry it himself. She never wanted to lead. She only led because no one dared to be unshaken. And so the hunt begins, not for love, but for collapse, for the mirror that will not flatter her, for the man who will not fall. She draws near not to be held, but to be shattered. She doesn't want to see herself in your kindness. She wants to see herself in your refusal. That moment when you turn away, not in cruelty, but in clarity. When you walk from her chaos without bitterness, that is when she feels exposed. That is when she sees herself, naked and without myth. But you cannot give her that if you are still asking for her. She will feel it. She will smell the hunger behind your words, the desperation beneath your politeness. Even if you wear the mask of power, she will hear the whisper of your need. She will test you again, not to mock you, but to verify. Are you real or merely rehearsed? And if she finds your strength is only a pose, she will smile and shatter the mirror herself. Yes, she will destroy it, because she cannot bear to be reflected falsely. She cannot bear to be mirrored by a man whose center is still external. She would rather leave than pretend. And so she crushes the glass you hold, not because you were cruel, but because you are soft in disguise. She does not forgive softness dressed as dominance. She does not admire gentleness wrapped in fear. She desires to be consumed, but only by something that cannot be consumed itself. You must be flame, not candle, storm, not shelter. The moment she feels safe, not protected, but safe, she loses herself. You must understand the difference. Protection means you see her danger and stand anyway. Safety means you hide from it. And she never respects a man who hides, not even from her. She wants you to look into her not gently, not sweetly, but with the vision of one who sees through illusions, who sees the goddess and the manipulator, the whore and the girl, the queen and the child, and does not flinch. Can you stand there and name what you see? Can you whisper into her soul and say, I see your madness, and I remain not as a savior, but as a sovereign? That is the mirror she fears and longs for. And yet, most men refuse. They would rather seduce than see. They would rather please than pierce. They chase her love like a dog starved for scraps. But she does not give love. She gives tests. Each word is a trap. Each silence is a snare. Not because she is wicked, but because she is waiting for someone worthy to fail the ritual. Do you think she wants to win? She does not. She wants to surrender, but only to the man who does not allow it cheaply. She wants to fight, to claw, to accuse, to beg, and finally collapse at your feet when nothing she does can shake you. When every strategy fails, when every seduction is met with silence, then, and only then, will she remember her nature, that she was never meant to lead, that her throne was always lower than yours, not because she is less, but because she is longing to kneel before something immovable. And yet, the modern man cannot provide this, because the modern man is fractured. He is taught to fear his own stillness, to doubt his own instincts, to shrink himself into comfort and apology. He is told to listen, to soothe, to validate, and so he becomes the therapist, not the tyrant, the caregiver, not the king. And she begins to hate him. She does not say this. She may not even admit it to herself, but it grows, quietly. Her desire for him rots in the pit of her stomach. She fakes the moans, she fakes the smiles, and one day, she walks away not because he was cruel, but because he was nothing, no fire, no boundary, no soul she could feel when her world was collapsing. So she finds another and another, until at last she stumbles upon the man who does not bend, the man who listens but does not obey, who touches but does not need, who smiles at her chaos and says, dance harder. This is not cruelty. This is liberation. She becomes beautiful in his presence, not because he praises her, but because he frightens her into humility, into truth, into softness earned, not given, into devotion that is no longer a strategy, but a hunger for him, only him. Because now, finally, she sees a man who cannot be broken, and so she dares to break herself. She shatters her own mirror, not out of spite but reverence. She crushes the illusions she wore like perfume. She drops the mask of the queen, of the victim, of the siren, and she kneels, quietly, not in fear, but in relief. And you do not move, you do not boast, you do not soften, you do not reach down to lift her, because you know the moment you lift her, she rises again into her false power. You let her kneel, and in that silence, she weeps, not for pain, but for the death of her performance. You have stolen nothing. You have taken nothing. You have only remained what you were unmoved, unfolded, whole. And now, she sees, not herself, but you, not the version of you she tried to shape, but the one she could never control. And for the first time, her love means something, because it is no longer a tool. It is an offering from a woman who has finally looked into the mirror and found nothing left to shatter. You will forget most of this. You'll return to your days, your routines, the weight of ordinary love. But there will be moments sharp, silent, sudden when it returns. A look across the room, a breath held too long, a woman's eyes narrowing, not in fear, but recognition. And you'll remember, not a lesson, not a rule, but a sensation cold, absolute, that you were once the man she could not bend. That for one sacred instant you said nothing, and she fell to her knees. You will not speak of it. No one will understand. But in the quiet, just before sleep, you will smile, and somewhere she still burns, waiting for the man who never moved.